Program. It is indeed a great pleasure to be here, as always, of course, to share information with you regarding, well, our wellness. Yes, we all in this. Yeah, we all in this. We all must be concerned and, of course, take every possible measure or measures, for that matter, to ensure that we are well. Yeah, that way we can live as long as we are permitted to. Yeah, of course, indeed. Well, I hope you enjoyed your Easter weekend. I know many of you went to the Carafta Games. It was indeed a pleasure, to see all the athletes perform and, do their thing. And, of course, congratulations to Team Grenada. They did very well. 11 medals, 1 gold, 4 silver, I think, and 5 bronze, I think it was. But excellent performances by all the athletes, yes? And, of course, we still have a lot more track and field action coming up. We have the Classic Lighting Invitational coming up later on this month, 25th and 26th. And so we're in for track and field treat. So we welcome our viewers on GBN Television, our friends on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. And of course, we welcome Doc. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm well, thanks. And good evening to Grenada and our friends in the diaspora, everybody who's listening to us on whatever feed you are. Thank you for being here. Happy Easter, everybody. I'm Catholic, so Easter is a long season. And a season of hope and strength, and we know that there is some way to go. It's been very stressful for most of us, most people, the ongoing war, the potentially escalating war, the seeming, just everybody do whatever they want. There is no almost hedonistic behavior by people who should be responsible leaders. And people trying to run everybody else's country for them. When in truth and in fact, you should be running your own and collaborating with everybody. So I'm going to ask people, I know it's a lot of stress. I'm going to ask you not to spend too much time following every detail of the war in the Middle East. Do not. Yes, and we need to be prepared for what can be consequences as well. The economic consequences, shutdown, lack of whatever resources we depend on people for. Start planting food. It's like a dry season, but it's going to get better by the end of next month, I understand. When the season ends, next month is going to be dry, but start planting food. Jog water from the river, wherever you have to do it to wet your land in the interim. So, but I want to ask people not to spend too much time watching all the intricacies of the conflict in the Middle East, because it can create a lot of psychological stress and depression, etc., especially people who are already prone to having mental health challenges. Please, you can get to daily updates, but you don't need to look at the gory details, because some of the details are really very gory, depending on where you access them from. Okay? In the interim, we pray that there be peace and that there be common sense by the people who are the so-called leaders in this country, and a lot less greed. And just fairness to human beings. Okay? That is what we're praying for. All right?
Yes, it's been something else. And you're right. Maybe people should not be paying so much attention to it.
Just to update so you can understand from an economic and just the whole geopolitical moves and what can happen, but do not make it your daily entertainment and all day long. Okay?
Well, I don't know that there's anything there that is entertaining other than the behavior of one particular individual. But nevertheless,
let's not call him. We don't want him to close on
I did not call.
I just want to warn our population, because people do look for stuff. We just want to know, because really and truly, we're looking for hope. Okay, that it will get better, and that this is going to end. That's what people are really seeking. Some amicable solution, and the world can go back to where it was. Hardly likely, but at least that the world can continue from where we are today. But like you say, we just had character games, and that was kicking it. I've been hearing the comments of the foreigners, the visitors who really, really, really enjoy being in Grenada and want to tell Grenadians just continue to be welcoming. And Grenada is still one of the safest places in the Caribbean. People feel happy being here. They don't feel judged. They don't feel like people treating them badly. We don't have a whole lot to offer, but we do have a lot to offer. A lot of fun. We vibesy. People love to see the Grenadians when every race they're making noise, whether or not they have some, whether or not we have somebody, and even if we come in last, we making noise. People come. I saw Grenadians. Oh, they're really enjoying themselves. I saw little 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, little children who really had a great time, and that was, I think, it was a wonderful family event. Nice place. The kids are running up and down. I really wish they will encourage the congregate, the people who, the audience, the visitors, we call them, the people who look on, right? To be a little more active, dancing and stuff, because that's one of the things we want to do as we encourage movement, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. And I want to tell us also, don't judge yourself by these young athletes, okay? They've been doing that all their lives. There are incentives to do that. Apart from their natural talents, there are incentives. They get opportunities to travel, they get opportunity, they win medals, they win money, they win other things. And for some of them, it is a career that they're building. So when you start to exercise, don't try to look like them, okay? Don't try to run like, what's his name? Ian George from Shaper School?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes,
Sprinter.
indeed.
You can't run like Ian George, okay? Let's get real. But you can take on the example that he leads by, being disciplined and eating properly and training, because he has an objective. And we're going to talk about physical literacy in a while, how that enhances your well-being across the lifespan, from your child until the latter part of your life. But it is important to see the example that these young people, they're being fit. We don't see anybody falling down. I see some children run 3,000 meters and then turn around like, where's the way out now? Like no big thing, because they have conditioned themselves. They have trained well. They've trained for competition. We just need to train to live well, and to prevent what is the biggest problem for us today. As far as our health systems go, we're faced with the whole challenge of obesity, overweight and obesity, weighing more than 30% of what your normal weight should be, for your height in adults and for your age and height and gender in children. It is a problem. We see it growing every day. We know across the world, half of our adults are overweight or obese. Not a good thing, right? Currently, we know across the world, 1/3 of our children are overweight or obese. That's not good, because that will grow as they get older, and it means we kind of need to look and see what can we do to fix what can happen down the road. Already we have too many people with diseases like hypertension and high blood pressure, that is, and diabetes, which is sugar, and heart problems, and all the other complications, cancers, etc., that obesity brings. So think about what those nice young people look like at character. You don't have to run as fast as them, but try and get to their size.
Right. Yes, indeed. Well, Doc, it's World Health Day today. Yeah. A very, very. Is it World Health Day? Yes, I think it is. Yes.
No, man. World Physical.
World Health Day 2026. Yes.
Oh, today too.
Yeah. Yes. I think I am.
Yesterday was World Physical Activities Day.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's so very important that we, and this is something we've spoken of so many times, the importance of ensuring that you're healthy. We all enjoy life. I mean, there's so many wonderful things to enjoy. I mean, just waking up in the morning and feeling that warm sunshine on your face, and in recent times a lot of wonderful breeze. It's windy, it's nice, you feel good. That's just a few of the many wonderful reasons to be alive. But guess what? We can only do that, and we can only enjoy that if we are well, if we are healthy. And so it's so very important for us to pay very special attention to our health. the question: how many of us has visited the doctor for the year so far? Have we gone and do a check, or medicals? Have we checked our blood pressure or blood sugar? Gentlemen, have you done your prostate exams? What have you done? And if you haven't yet, we're in April. It is time that you did visit your physician, and get yourself checked. You can visit Dr. Nixon. She's at the Bruce Street Mall. Have yourself checked. Make sure that you are right. And if you're not, here's the beautiful thing: it can be picked up, and then doc can get you back on track. So knowing where you are is also very important. And just in case you're not, then you can be placed back on track. So, Doc, World Health Day, physical exercise, we spoke of character games, we saw all the activities. Let's talk.
I want you to go back to our physical conditions, because I think it's very important. A friend in Toronto sent me a picture this morning at 4 o'clock and says, look at what I had. There was snow on the ground. And I keep telling them, you guys going to get snow in April because the weather doesn't look very cute. It doesn't look like it's promising. We wake up in the morning and we don't have that. Yeah, a little rainfall in the morning, but you can still go in the yard and do some stretches. You can sweep the yard. If you jog, you can go out on the street at your own risk. You go to a park. And our environment actually can enhance our physical activity. Just to walk and see the sunrise, go to the beach, just walk to some nice place, walk to your garden, okay? Walk up the road, walk to early morning church if there's church in your community, or even in the evening. Walk around the community when you're doing your prayer meeting, those kind of stuff. Instead of taking a car, just walk up the road. If you have a bicycle, go riding with your kids. Go to the park, kick some ball if you're able to do so. The other thing is that one of the things we tend to forget that there are people who are not as able as most of us. So even your child who has physical disability, a child who might have cerebral palsy, or a child who might have Down syndrome, who has weaker muscles and stuff, they have their limits. Everybody has something that they can do, and that is what we want to look at when we talk about physical well-being, right? Being active, just being active, whatever your body can do. If it means you get up and stretch your hand and bring them back down, that's what you want to do. Do as far as you can do, and do as long as you can do it, and as far as the intensity can go. And watch yourself grow, watch yourself get better. That's the things we want to look at, making sure that you can be your best mover.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Doc, you mentioned and it took me back to last Sunday. I usually visit my mom on the weekends, to check on her and everything like that. And I saw her and she was in the veranda exercising, and I'm like. So she holds onto the wall, and she's moving her legs up and down, and I'm like, go girl, you're doing well. This is and it's
looking at me.
It's amazing,
Yes.
And so those of us who are still very very young and active, let's do something, even if you can't go jogging or you can't go walking for long distances. There are things you can do. As Doc said, you can do your stretches, you can do little cardios. I remember in primary school when we came back from lunch, we would have to stand and do hands up, hands down, hands up, hands down, all of those things. So there's a lot of little things you can do to keep. Keep the blood. Head and shoulders, knees and toe. Yeah, keep your blood flowing. You might be amazed what that can do for you. So yeah.
We were talking about while we were talking, we spoke a lot about childhood obesity in the last 2 years, okay? And we talked about the 15-minute mile. Do you remember that? With this grade 3 teacher in Scotland who needed to find a way to keep her children active. They were coming and sitting, who had phones. They were just sat in the classroom, had their break. And in the 15 minutes that they had for their mid-morning break, she would let them go and run. You run as fast as you can, as far as you can. and come back before, right? Do whatever you can. But it was called a 15-minute mile. The children lost weight. They certainly did not put on weight, right? They were more active, they were more participatory, and they were better mentally, cognitively. They had greater blood flow to their brain. So that class actually did well. It's actually part of the Scottish behavioral practice in their schools, in their grade schools, in their primary schools, for their children to do this. It's one of the things is written into policy. Send the children out and run up and down and play. Okay? You could never get enough time up and down the deck, keep moving. Do you remember that? Right? Playing ring games and running up and down. Today, there are lots of reasons why, often not necessarily very good reason why our children don't participate in physical activity at school. And one of the reasons that parents don't want their children to get their clothes dirty. You still have to wash your clothes for tomorrow. They don't want them to bruise any. Knees supposed to bruise, okay? Those are war marks, all right? Our children need to be active. The more your children play, the more physically strong they become, the less they fall. The more they exercise and strengthen their knee and get their coordination, the less they're going to have injury. So if you're worried about injury, the earlier they start, the less they're likely to have injury as they grow. So that's one of the challenges. And I want to encourage grandparents, like you saw your mother. I want to encourage grandparents to be advocates for our children in particular. Because if you can, children come home and stay with grandma, right? Unless grandma is really disabled, you can do stuff, teach them hand clapping games and make them laugh and stretch themselves and throw themselves on a chair. That's all movement, and breathing and not getting bored. I'm bored. Once they start to bored, they want the TV turn on, they want their handheld device so they can play. No, that's not what we want for our children. We want children who are basically very active. And so World Physical Activities Day was yesterday, the 6th of April, but you were out in the park, out in the stadium, being very physically active, okay? Watching people who epitomize what physical activity can be, those who are the hallmark of great physical activity, of disciplined action, and who come to the level of competition. That's the greatest, okay? And the theme was more movement, more life. So your mother is trying to outlive you?
Yep.
Okay. And that's good. And we need to encourage people at all rates. You say, no, let them sit down. No, you can walk up and down the veranda. And I find that my older patients who are encouraged to walk the veranda, even if the veranda is 10 feet long, they do better. The blood pressure gets better control. They feel better cognitively. As far as their brains go, they function a lot better because there's greater circulation into their brains. So we have to encourage our older population. But we cannot caught in the crossfire because we already have an older population who, because of lack of physical activity, right? We want to encourage physical activity among our population. We already have a population who, because of that lack of physical activity, already has challenges or greater potential, a greater propensity, the greater possibility of developing chronic diseases like we say, hypertension, diabetes, right, and stuff. What we want to do is to reduce this, make them let people sufficiently active so that there's reduction. And we know that even patients who already have disease, once they become active, more and more active, they have better control without having to take so many medications. Their whole sense of well-being is improved. And that's what we want. But like I said, we're at a crossroads. We have that older population that already starts having disease. And we have a young population who has become overweight and obese. And that's growing. That will become more ill because they're going to start being ill younger. So by the time they reach the age of the old population now, they'll be very, very ill. And that's not good for us. That's not good for us as nations. That's not good for us who are trying to build a prosperous nation, because you can't afford to have very ill people among us who don't produce. Okay? We want to be, especially our young people who have a lot of potential, who have access to better education and all the rest. So we want to make sure that we can preserve that younger population in particular. And so the interventions, the things we're going to do, are going to have to start from very, very early. Okay? Start from very early. You see, the people who are a little more wealthy than us take their children in the U.S. and first world take their children to tumble gyms and all the rest. We don't need to do that. Go sit and play ring a rosy. Okay? Do stuff. Children play games. Run up and down the house. Okay? Learn to do somersaults. Whatever it is, just be active. And of course, we can have our children engaged in other games, structured games, football, netball, whatever it is. But things like skipping that don't cost us anything. Okay? Playing football in a yard. You don't necessarily have to put on a ballet outfit and go to dance. You can have community centers where the children they play drums and the girls come and learn to dance and the boys drums and everybody move. There are lots of things that we can do in our environment that's not going to cost us a lot, but it's going to benefit a lot as far as our health is concerned. And those are the things we really want to do. Those are the things we want to engage. So I want to talk about physical about first of all the motivation, right? Motivation for physical activity. Some people say, "Boy, I can't do that." Like I said, don't try to join those kids who ran in the stadium in the last 3 days. They've been running for a long time. They've been running from they're going to preschool. They've been running very hard. And one of my nephews is part of the character team. Gets up in the morning at 6 o'clock. He's in training. He goes to school, and he has training in the evening. That's the extreme. We can't compete with them, but we can learn from them. They start small, and they grow. That's the motivation we all have to have. You start small, a little bit. Like I said, you walk your yard twice, and I tell my patients, go walk in the morning if you could make it, right? You walk around your house and say your prayers, or you walk up to the corner. If you can't reach the corner, just come back. Tomorrow morning, you walk a little faster to where you were, and you come back, right? If you feel you're really not going to make it, just turn. You should enter the yard, just come back in. It's all right. You already started. You try and repeat that tomorrow, and you try and increase. So it's really just doing small amounts. Start small, right? And increase. Whatever it is, walking, swimming, I don't know, dancing, right? And you try to increase your intensity. How much of it you do and how long you do it, right? Don't overdo it because you don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want, if you start today and you do some tomorrow, by what today is Tuesday, by Thursday, you're not going back out there because my foot can't move and I never realized I had so many muscles in my body. Okay? We want to make sure that you feel motivated to go back. And the truth is, once you start moving, you want to move again. All right? But don't overdo it. As you start, you increase slowly. All right. I want to talk about physical literacy. I was hoping I'd have somebody from the Ministry of Sports, but they're tired. They've been working hard for the last 2 weeks. And plus we've had intercall and primary school sports and everything. People have really been busy in this athletic season. So what is this thing we hear about physical literacy? Being knowledgeable about our physical activity, basically. So it's a whole process, okay? It's not something that happens overnight. It's a process that includes, it's very holistic. It includes a lot of areas of our lives, okay? Right? That connects motivation. I really want to do this. That connects confidence. I trust myself to do this, right? That connects physical competence and knowledge, right? Because you can't want to play, say I'm playing lawn tennis and really go in there and skipping. They're two different things. You have to know which is which, right? And understanding, right? And you put a value on all of this, right? And try to engage it all along your lifespan. So, physical, you're motivated, you develop the confidence. It's time, these things take time. You develop physical competence. You also develop knowledge as well as employ whatever basic knowledge you have, and understanding, and that understanding must be of the value, right? And engagement in sports, in physical activity over a long time, okay? Over a lifespan, right? So let's break that down. What are the components of this? There's certain components, and the first thing, your mind and your body. So that takes into consideration your understanding, right? Your cognitive, your consciousness and understanding, and putting together with physical movement. So it's not something that's happening passively. I'm doing this. Okay? It's not happening passively. It's just not, no, you're not just going and somebody say, raise your hand. You want to do this. You know that you're lifting your hands. Because when I lift my hands and I stretch them out, I will feel better. I can breathe better. My body will become more flexible. Okay? And you recognize and thinking and feeling and movement are interdependent. So I want to do this because it makes me feel good, right? So the thinking, I'm going to go walking. And you start walking and realize, oh, all right, I have to breathe a certain way. I have to walk. I have to do X, Y, Z. Put on good safe shoes. Don't walk in the middle of Lucas Street at 8 o'clock in the morning. Go down where you go to Victoria Park, wherever it is, safe places. And you can go like 5 o'clock, right? But you know that you are aware that there's a relationship between how you feel, what you're thinking about doing, and the movement that you employ that is going to make your life better. You got me?
Yes.
It's not just,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an awareness that you created. You're very aware that, I want to do this. I'm going to go there and do this, right? And when I do this, boy, I really feel good. Or it's going to make me feel good. So you're thinking, you're feeling, and movement is what you use. So you're motivated by that, right? Your mind and your body working together to make sure that you engage in physical activity that you like. So you're not going to play football if you have knock knees like me and you're going to fall over, but you probably can just walk, or you can dance, right? Or you can do yoga, right? Or you can play volleyball, or whatever it is, okay? Whatever makes you feel that you can engage in, that gives you that warm feeling of satisfaction, and there's movement, and you think, yes, this is what I want to do. I like this. Be very aware of what you think, what you're doing, right? And then as you do this, as the time goes by, your competence increases. So, can you skip?
Yeah, well, yes, I can. I used to do a lot of it, yeah.
With what? What you skip with? Mind your cushion rope?
When I was a little fella, and then I graduated to rope.
Yeah. You get by the river on Sunday evening. That's what but you skip. Nonetheless, next week Sunday, forget that to scratch and you go back and skip, right? So, competence and confidence. So, a lot of our children can't skip because they have not been taught how to skip. They have skipped skipping as an activity. This is an inexpensive, joy-filled activity, but requires some coordination, right? And some learning, right? So in developing confidence and competition, you have to develop some foundation that includes movement and certain skills, right? Right? If you don't know how to do it, you kind of need to learn it. And I say, oh, I want to do this, but you kind of need to learn, what am I doing? Oh, this is how you do it. You put a rope over your head and you jump. And that's how we learn. Put a rope over your head and you walk, and you do it a little faster. So you understand that there's certain movements and certain skills, right? And that includes coordination, ability to move, your agility, right? And it builds that self-assurance. So today you skip and jump and you foot type on a rope and you do it the next time and you do it the next time, and by next week you're doing double dutch and dancing all over the place as you go, as you train, as you improve your agility, right? So that is the other component of physical literacy. So whereas last week you wonder how they're skipping at all, how you hold this two rope, next week you're playing. You used to play running and run out when you skip?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
one,
We
one, two, three,
then
and the
we
next person wants
yeah then we had
three
something,
times.
that we called pepper. Do you know about
Oh,
pepper
yeah,
in
yeah. And
skipping?
pepper run out because you're running and somebody give you a pepper and you have to
Yeah.
dash it off.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But that requires a lot of coordination,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to learn, and as you get better, nobody can pepper you because you know how to run in fast and run out. But that's physical activity, and it's enjoyable, and you're really engaged your mind. I want to play that because you may be in a place where you can choose to skip or choose to play clap hand or choose to dance, but you have developed the competence for skipping or whatever it is, and you choose. So, but you also may develop the competence for athletics, right? Somebody might say, "But it's Shaq, you run fast." Everybody run fast when their mother running after them to beat them. But if you could keep it up, you might have a greater talent. All right? We all know how to run from mommy on the belt. But when it comes to running in sports, it's something that you have to develop. And somebody might see you and you keep trading. It's the same way athletes does. Kirani did it. And I'm sure Kirani never grew up running from born. But he's trained, they recognized that he had a skill and he got engaged. And it's profession for him, but it's also physical activity. Okay? And then how do we relate an individual with the environment? Right? We have to everybody has to relate their personal health, right? And ability to interact in the world in which we live. Okay? So some of us can't walk on the road where we live. Okay? We can't walk because they're gonna kill us. Because they have some pilots with some cars who don't know how to drive. This week they're driving through the steering wheel, next week they're flying Concorde. Okay? But we have to develop a relationship with the environment in which we find ourselves in relation to physical activity. I don't know what you do up where you live. Where I live, I probably walk in my yard. Or probably sweep up the yard. Right? The other things is see children playing, running roller. There's some boys who ride bicycle that every day I see them, I tell them, listen to me, don't call me if you get bounced on. But they ride a bicycle. And they move from riding in front of the yard to riding up and down the hills. And that's improving their physical ability. The road is there for them to ride their bicycles, and they ride their bicycles. Okay? So whatever it is, how does my desire for physical activity relate to the environment in which I find myself? We talked about having beaches, right? You could go to the beach and learn to swim, or like I learned to swim in a river. Okay? What is it that you're going to do? Are you going to play on the playground in school, run up and down the slide? That is activity. Are you going to get better, whatever you do? So you take 5 minutes to walk up the thing today. Are you running? Are you doing 5 rounds in a minute? When it comes to run up the stairs in the round up in the on the slide and slide on and run back quickly, right? Those are building skills. Is that what is there? Do you have a playground in your thing? Can you play in your community? Can you play cricket or bat and ball, whatever it is? Okay, that is getting involved in your environment. Okay, so you build a positive relationship, right? And that you always want to do that. It lasts throughout your lifetime, but you have to be introduced. Okay, an individual must relate to his environment and say, what can I do in my environment that can enhance my physical well-being? I remember my daughter, after she left convent, said to me, she was living away, and she said, oh, she missed convent. Why? Because they'll walk up and down the hill and everybody had nice legs. And I look at the hills today and I wonder if those hills were made to kill us, because I used to run up and down St. John Street. I know it probably take me 10 minutes to walk St. John Street. But the bottom line is that as adolescents, we never knew we could take bus because there were no bus anyway. But we would run up and down the hill because you had to go back to a class at a certain time in your extracurricular activity. So you got accustomed to this. You know that if you left at 1:45 and you need to be there for 2:30, you're going to have to run up the hill. But that's something we did, and it didn't make any problem. Eventually, there was no problem. We run up the hill anyway. So how do you and your environment interact for you to become physically more able? Okay, that's part of literacy, and something that you can maintain throughout your lifestyle. And then you talk about skills and motivation. Um, and we talked about the kids too who become professionals, right? But how do you turn the learned physical skills into desire and have that commitment, right, to stay active for enjoyment and health benefits? So it's not just ready to become a professional. How do you make sure you do that? You know, like you see some women have their yoga mat in the car. I think that's one of the most disciplined groups. They have their yoga mat and they go into yoga every evening. Or the people who go to gym have their gym clothes in their car. How are you going to develop the skills and the motivation that makes you keep doing the activities? All right, there must be something that has to keep you active all the time, that motivates you, because you have so much fun, you enjoy it, and you also know that physically I am better for engaging in this activity. So if you're having difficulty skipping, maybe you should play Ring a Roses, or netball, or football, or basketball, or some other game. Okay? But you got to find your niche and something that makes you happy. If you're afraid of doing a contact sport, you could probably go swim, or just jog, right? Or play rounders in school, whatever it is. But encourage our children to find pleasure, to have an understanding that this is going to make me better, to ensure that there's a place for it to happen, and that they can interact in communities and where they live. Because I don't know why I must have to drive all the way to Granans on the bad road to go to the beach, as much as I like walking on the beach, right? I can probably walk somewhere and develop a different skill, right? So that's what I'm saying. But it must be something. If we introduce those habits in our children from small, if they get to have the pleasure, to find the pleasure and understand why they must do it, and develop the desire and the skills, they will probably most likely maintain a very active lifestyle throughout their life. Can we agree on that?
Oh yes, definitely. Indeed.
Right? So as people remain active, they interact with the world, and then they get this positive feedback, because you interact with it, and it creates a positive feedback because you have increased competence. You get better and better, right, at what you do, and then you get more confidence, and then you have the motivation to remain active, and you keep on being active because you like what you do, and that cycle. And so you become so accustomed to doing this that you always want to do it. And that is basically what is physical literacy.
And you know, it can also open doors for you. I mean, you made the point when you mentioned Kirani earlier, that maybe he didn't started off at a very young age, but then at some point he recognized the talent, and so that can happen. So, just by doing that, you might be surprised. You probably never knew you were a great footballer before you started getting involved and kicking the ball around, or maybe a great cricketer, so there's so much. And even aside from being healthy, it can actually work for you and make money for you,
But this is what
so there's so much.
The other side of it.
Yeah.
There's so much, but it's being able to engage in something that is in your space, that you have active, that you develop skills for, right? You develop that skill for doing whatever it is. It could be more than one skill, okay? You could play cricket and basketball and everything, but they're all things that not only make you happy, but they keep you well. And like you say, there are always scouts looking, people looking to see, oh, this child is talented. Especially children who live far from school and have to walk, run to hell. You have to run like hell to get to school before bell ring. Especially if you have a bad principal at waiting by the road with a belt on his shoulder, right? But that's also something that, this morning I'm going to beat that principal. He's not going to catch me. I'm going to run this morning. And then you find, I have pleasure doing this. And also a teacher sees this child has that skill. But we have to be aware that there are these possibilities, and we have to give our children the opportunity to develop the skill, first of all, for their well-being and their health. So physical education must not be a chore, because we're going to talk about it how we're going to deal with all the challenges that we have. Physical education must not be a chore. Physical education must be something that a child sees, enjoys, that is accessible to him, that the facility is prepared for, and all of us. But in school in particular, you must have whatever it is that that child is able to do. And like I said, we can't forget the children who are less able.
Right.
Okay? Can't forget the children that must able. We must design something for the children who are less able so that they too can participate in activities that can enhance their physical well-being.
Well, I mean, Doc, as you mentioned that, you saw them on the Character Games.
Yes.
They participated. I mean, it was just
that visually impaired young man.
Yes,
Run.
yes. It is. It is really, really wonderful. It's really wonderful to see that.
But we see it every year also at Special Olympics. We have
Yeah,
people who are very disabled, people who lack coordination and all the rest. But they have improved as far as they can within their possibilities, their physical limitations, or the things that would like to limit them because they don't see themselves as being limited, right? They work as fast as possible to overcome the limitations and be their best self, their best selves. And that is what each of us is required to do. And like I tell my patients, I don't want you to go and run. You can't run like Kirani. You can't run like Linton Victor, right? Right? But you can do what you can do, and you can do what you can do better every day. Walk a little. Walk a little.
Yep.
And I see my patients who just by walking the veranda and doing their prayers in the morning, their mobility improves, their relationship with their family improves because they're not as cranky. They become less independent. You know, their brain is a little more active, and they just generally feel better about themselves. You know, and they have, of course, for most part, they tend to have improved management of their diabetes and their hypertension with that.
That's exactly where I was going. I was going to ask you to just connect it to some of the chronic conditions. The importance of physical activity and how it can positively impact those of us who have chronic conditions, and blood sugar. When you exercise, you burn a lot of this energy, you burn that sugar, and
and your body absorbs the glucose into the cells better, so it doesn't stay in your blood vessels and cause all the damages it does to your brain and your eye and your heart and your kidneys and the circulation generally, especially in your feet. Once we can do that, we're good.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Doc, there are people, and you mention it. Some people they like to probably go jogging or run a couple miles, and there are those who cannot do that. But so people who are a little obese or have a couple extra pounds or more pounds than others, tend to feel a little uncomfortable sometimes. Some people, not all. What would you say to them in terms of them not wanting to go out? So because you feel uncomfortable, you stay home, and I've heard people speak about it. So in an effort to try to drop a couple pounds rather than going out and having the fear that people may say something or look at you, you decide, you know what, I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to stop eating this or stop eating that. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't work out. It really doesn't. It doesn't work out.
Because those muscles have to get going to burn out,
right?
Burn that extra that food.
So what would you say to people who are a little overweight or overweight and feel a little uncomfortable or a little shy or maybe a little ashamed, to probably go out there and do a little exercise and to kind of get yourself in shape? How would you help them to overcome that?
I think I'll speak first to the people who don't have that overweight, because I think we tend to have to look down on people who we think are less able than ourselves. Again, remembering that you weren't born that way. It took time and effort. Okay? I think we have to, those of us who don't have the challenges, and I'm not the slimmest girl in town, but those of us who don't have the challenges need to learn to respect and support. Okay? because criticism does not make anybody but, oh, what are you fat? Lord, your foot heavy, Lord, this, okay? I think we all have to motivate each other to be our best selves. I think so. And at the same time, I would encourage people who are overweight, start a little bit. Start inside your house. Start around your yard. Just get moving, right? Get up and put on music in your house and dance. Okay? Put on music inside your house and dance. Nobody has to see you. And the confidence will grow and your joints will stop hurt and you can lift your foot a little better and you start feeling better at yourself. If you feel very self-conscious, the way your body looks, start inside your house. Or find a group of your friends who have who are more tolerant and who have like challenges, or even people who are already getting there in relation to their lifestyle. But if you can't go out there, just stay in your house and do what you can. Clearing a ring of roses with your children outside. There are other ways. There are ways to do it. Start by yourself until you can build the confidence. Remember, we talked about confidence and competence, right? After a while, people will talk, but you walk. They will talk. People need to talk because they need to air their mouths, all right? But you keep your focus because it's all about you and your well-being. There's nothing like being 200 pounds and losing 1 pound. You lose 1 pound, you feel like you've conquered the world, okay? And it's just a matter of improving your competence and your confidence and getting there, developing a skill, walking more effectively, whatever it is. It must be better. Everything you do must be better than the day before. Okay? And like I said, if you walk into the crossroad and the crossroad is 1 block away, and you reach halfway, you find that you can't manage, you go back to your house. Walk back so you at least get back home, right? And tomorrow you try it again, right? Don't give up, right? It is that ongoing participation, right? That helps you to build the skills that can make you feel good about yourself. That can make you feel, yeah, man, I got this. I can trust myself to do this. I will move. And you won't even hear the people talk. And they want to talk, that's a business. People, like I say, everybody have mouth, they can say whatever they want. But you must keep focused on what you want for yourself. You must understand what are the goals you want to establish by being physically active. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to go and buy expensive clothes. Put on your t-shirt and a pair of slacks. And wear proper shoes. That will mash up your knee. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to run. You cannot run. You don't have to run like Kirani or Usain Bolt at all. Just take it easy. Walk, slow jog. And a matter of fact, we know that you have more injury to your knee if you do hard physical activity on it, especially if you're overweight. So take it easy. Take it easy. 1 day at a time. Every day is better than the day before. Okay? Yep. That is what I would encourage you to do. And there's there's support group of people who are severely overweight or who, find a group. You go to a group and it's not happy, sayonara. Go to another one. Fine. Or like I said, just do it for yourself until you feel confident enough to go there and be with other people. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm.
I just okay. So go ahead. When you I'll come back with
because mine is kind of tying up the whole solution thing.
Right. So I just wanted to jump. I was just looking at the the PAHO site and some of the things that they were talking about as it relates to World Health Day. They said it was, well, of course it's celebrated every year on the 7th of April to mark the anniversary of the founding of WHO in 1948. And each year a theme is selected to highlight priority area of public health concern in the world. So to expand a little bit, Doc, and while I know earlier you spoke about it and that and encourage folks not to focus too heavily on what is happening, but things like that can impact your health or does impact our health in significant ways. We were hearing threats of bombing water plants and all of these things, and all of these things can impact our health. We are here in Grenada. We are not directly impacted by it. But when you look at what is happening and how these things can impact the world, in terms of safeguarding ourselves as individuals, what little can we do, to ensure that, because of what is happening, we can find ways to protect ourselves and ensure that we remain healthy.
So I think the first thing, you have to be aware of what is going on, right? And don't take it secondhand, because people always blow things out of proportion, right? There is a war going on in the Middle East, and the war surrounds energy, right? The war surrounds having power to produce. Industrial countries want to have oil, which is what we're using currently, right? Some countries, there are a lot of countries that use solar energy, but oil to produce, for the factories to run, for the grain farm, to make grain, to run the machinery on their farms, whatever it is, okay? To make cars, to make drink bottle, whatever it is, okay? Clothing, you need energy to run these systems that have, and the energy we mostly use now, and is petrol, right? Petroleum, to fly our planes, to drive our cars, right? To run our electricity for our hospitals, so kids can sit in comfort at school, so there's light in the night, right? So street lights in places that can be unsafe, whatever it is. It is a reality, and it's going to affect us indirectly or maybe directly, because if we can't get petrol, we're also going to need to have an energy source for hospitals to run, ICU. You still want to have look at energy in your fridge, and if you might have a generator. If you don't have a solar generator, crap or smoke your pipe, because when the petrol runs out, what do you do? Look at what happened to Cuba 2 weeks ago when they blockaded Cuba. The most criminal thing that nobody sane can do that. Okay, nobody sane should do that, right? When you blockade a country and you prevent them from getting that which is necessary to keep people alive, something is wrong. Something is very wrong. But then that's my opinion, okay? Please know this is Sonia Nixon speaking for Sonia Nixon. This has nothing to do with GBN. But Cuba was blockaded, and the country fell into darkness, and people died because there was no no petrol to take you to the hospital if you get sick. There's no lights in the hospital, and most of the equipment that run in a health setting, especially in a emergency and highly specialized health setting, requires electricity. If you plunge a country into darkness, if there's no electricity, yes, and I know the Cubans have been trying their best to employ, to utilize solar energy, but you can't do all of that in 1 week or 2 weeks when you lock down your country. It's impossible. And yes, they might be growing and trying their best to make it. No, it's impossible. And when people can't get food and they can't get school, and it's going to happen with us if we can't. 85% of our food in Grenada is imported. I was looking at the statistics today.
Yep.
All the way to go plant cassava under the ground, and yam, and sweet potato. Okay, we're going to need to find ways to preserve ourselves, and we don't know how long this is going to last. Yeah, you can make coconut oil, you got a little grease, right? You probably can fish and all the rest of it, but even to go fishing, you need oil for your boat. You need petrol for your boat, right? I know also that most of us have families who live in all of these countries, okay? And it is a source of emotional stress for us. Everybody has family who live in the US. And everybody worries about whether they're going to invade, they're going to bomb the US. And there probably are going to be terrorist action against the US. There probably are. There's a lot of speculation, right? But Will my cousin get lick on the train when she's coming from work in Manhattan to Brooklyn? When my father goes to work wherever he works, the factory, the printer, whatever it is, are they going to burn? When he goes into Walmart, are they going to blow up Walmart? You understand? When my auntie go to church, are they going to bomb the church? So I think we have to prepare ourselves mentally that a lot of crazy things are going to happen because people are out there using their power in very, very immature ways. Okay? Every day I feel like this is a game of marble where the guy who can't play marble had the most marble, and because he can't win, he take all his marble and go home. Right? That's how it feels to me most of the days, that you have this guy, he's a bully, but he can't play marble and he have the most. But he also wants to take your marbles away, even if he had the most marbles. Even if everybody, when you line up the tours in the circle, right? He has more marbles than everybody in a circle together. He still wants your marbles, and if not, he's gonna go home and he's gonna wreak havoc on your life, mash up your bicycle on his way out, kick down your father's gate because he has the power to do that. This is what this feels like, and it's very sad because I think people's stress is based on the fact that we don't feel we have control because the reasonable man no longer seems to exist. Okay? There's a lack of reason. So sometimes we can't even figure out what can happen. We can listen to the experts, but we still may not be able to figure out what can happen. So I'm going to ask people to prepare yourself mentally. First of all, support each other. Don't get scared. Don't get scared. We should never be afraid. Don't get scared. Look at what the worst can be. Speak to people who have lived in those kind of crises before. There's still people who lived in World War II who can give us some ideas, right? There are people who have come from war zones. I don't want my child who's living in the US to go to war. Why? He's going to be fodder for the Iranians, okay? He is going to be fodder. There's no need to have a ground war. We need to stop this foolishness now, all right? But we all worried. Right? So there's that indirect challenge that we face, but there are possibility for direct challenges that we will face. And we have to look at it. We have to look and see what are the direct challenges that are going to affect me. Am I going to have food? Am I going to have access to clean water? Right? Am I going to be able to cook? Or do I need to put some coals? No, when I limb my trees, do I have to put some coals under the dust and make some coals I can put on my coal pot? Do I have to start learning how to share with my neighbor? So we do one pot instead of using I cook, you cook, and we don't have no fridge to store it anyway. Okay? So we have to look at the practical ways if a problem comes. What is the worst case scenario and how are we going to solve this? Because we're probably going to want to depend on the government, but the government is not going to have much power to do many things. Okay, because if the government could give us petrol, they will. They will make sure that everybody gets a little bit. Put some kerosene in your lamp. You put some. How do we get the ambulances to move around? If the government doesn't have any petrol, they can't do that. Okay, the police can't get around. If a boy want to come to your house and thief because he knows that you have something else, you have what he doesn't have. What he doesn't have, the police can't get there because they don't have a means of getting there. But let's not create a crisis in our heads that doesn't exist. The best way to avert or to prevent a crisis, a disaster, is by being prepared, understanding what are the possibilities. Talk about that. Talk about the positive ways to solve the problem. We can't solve the stupidness that's going on outside, but we can solve how we respond and how we prepare ourselves for this. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, indeed. Because you made the point earlier that a lot of people they're stressed, and in fact, only today I was talking to a group of individuals about the same, war and its impacts, and the fact that maybe there are those of us who thinking, well, it's happening all the way in the Middle East, and we won't be affected, and I reminded them that when COVID-19 started, it started even further in China until our people started dying. So these are things that we have to, pay attention to and understand what's happening.
Let me tell you how it can impact. So a young individual with whom I'm very close went to South Africa from the US on vacation through Qatar on Monday. Okay? On the Monday of that week when the war started. She's in South Africa and the war starts on Friday. And she calls and I said, how you doing? She says, I'm good. You having fun? Yeah. I said, oh, so you call me now that you're going to have to live in South Africa. Because by that time they already bombed Qatar, right? Because the war started on Monday, right? She says, what do you mean? I said, because there's a war in me. Oh, really? You're on vacation, you're not picking up these things, right? And she says, she's on vacation. When on vacation, when she think about how she gets back to the US. But that's it. I was very worried. Okay? She could hardly get a flight to get up the US. The driver had to fly through Kenya to get back to the US, to get out of South Africa, right? As innocently as that. I won't even tell you what it cost her, but she got back. It costs. What if you don't have that kind of cost? And the money that the airlines give you can't get you back there. Well, the airlines did reimburse them for the second leg, but it couldn't get them back there. Well, not what it, you get a decent flight on these big airlines. You don't, but we can be caught that innocently. And there's nothing you can do about it. So you might as well keep your head straight, right? And plan ahead. It may not work out perfectly. The people who live in the Midwest and stuff, where you have a lot of tornadoes, build a hatch, an underground place. So when the tornado, the warning system goes off, everybody goes downstairs. You know, when people come back up and when they reach upstairs, when they reach back out of the ground, they don't recognize anything because the whole house is gone. But they have had a way of preserving life. Okay? So that's what we're going to have to do. And I tell you, we're going to all have to, this is going to be worse than COVID if we do have a war. Because in COVID, we were with our families and everybody, we still had food and other things, right? There's still electricity, there's still running water. There's still all basic creature comfort. You just couldn't go and walk up and down and let nobody cough in your face. Though that is what happened. However, we are all going to have the same lack of means and are all going to have to learn how to live collaboratively, how to share.
Yes, indeed. Very, 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 very important. Very important indeed. Doc, maybe just a touch on this before we get ready to close. We are in the dry season. The El Nino phenomenon is expected this year, which means that we could be facing some high temperatures and so on, a serious dry season. And so during that period, there are some negative health effects that can come with that.
Can we, before we go into El Nino, because La Nina just went by, okay? I'm being funny. So like I tell you, my friend sent me a picture of snow in Toronto this morning on April 7th, okay? And it wasn't just a dusting, okay? It was snow. Probably 2 inches of snow on the ground. That's a lot of snow, right? It's cold here. It's really cold here in the nights. When in the night it gets very cold. This is April. We're not accustomed to this kind of cold. And it's going to get very hot because already the days have gotten hot. But I want to talk about, I want to talk about solutions for the challenges that we have in relation to activities. And there is policy, because we do have in Grenada a childhood obesity prevention policy. And there's policy in the Caribbean and some of the islands, but we do have. The first thing is putting back PE in schools. Physical education must not just be an academic subject, okay? Physical education must be a time when children get to go out and play. And if they don't get it at school, mothers and fathers and granny and uncle and whoever these kids live with, make sure they're active. 30 minutes at least every day for children. And I'm not talking about just going outside and watch outside and watch everybody. I'm talking about go and run up and down. Okay, be active. All right? And make sure that it is the responsibility, if we have policy, our policymakers must make sure that our children have good spaces. I can tell you, I went to Heinz School and I still try to figure out where we find space to run. Because when I reach down there, if 5 of us, me, you, and 3 other people, big people go there, we can't run up and down in that little yard. But the children find space and they run up and down and they play. And we have to encourage them. We also have to ensure that when we're building our communities, right? When we're building new communities, and there are communities being developed, that there are spaces, safe spaces for our children to run up and down, okay? To be able to play. I know the Prime Minister has put some playgrounds in St. David's. There's a playground in Tantine. The people in Lamode yesterday started their playground for their children. And other community centers, other communities need to take the example so kids don't have to play on the road, okay? We have our football fields and all the rest. We must make sure. The ministries who run all of this, remember we always talk about health in all policies. Every ministry must have health on its policy. The Ministry of National Security, how can people walk up and down the street? Is there electricity? Is there, that's infrastructure, but is there safe roads? Okay. Is there light? When I go run, when somebody goes to the field, will they walk into a crab hole? When we build a housing area, are we putting places for recreation for communities? Are we giving the people who have houses spaces so they can grow proper food at the back of their house? The children can run in the yard and play ring a rosy, or just, whatever they're playing. That is what ministries have to come together. Ministry of Finance, Education, Health, they all have to come together with this. How do we make sure that our children can remain active, right? Ministry of Education has to ensure that physical activity is implemented in all schools every day. The Ministry of Education has a responsibility to make sure that we have, and Ministry of Sports, that we have trained personnel, people who know to make sure our children don't damage their joints and all the rest as they engage in physical activity at early, okay? And we have to take into consideration the communities that are poorer, the low-income communities, the communities that are more vulnerable, right? The people who live in towns, in the city, the people who live in country area where you don't have proper roads and the roads are not properly paved and you don't have lights and all the rest of it, okay? We have to make sure that those physical facilities are available and then some, okay? And of course, we must have change in the food that we give our children, right? We must make sure that our children have proper water, that processed foods are not available in school to our children, ultra-processed products like sodas and those things in the bags that make noise, okay? We have a lot of vegetables that you want to give your children chips? There's plantain and banana and dasheen that sometimes we have too much of. Make it for your kids and teach our children to eat differently. And remember that all them pretty boxes in the store, really pretty, just so they can kill you, right? You see all these monstrous looking images on the boxes. They're not good for us. They're just as bad. Take away things like ramen. Policy from the Ministry of, no, this is not to happen. Our children must not have access to these things, right? And we have policy not only to say, here's what we'd like to do, but policy that have teeth and consequences, so that we say no sugar sweetened beverages in school. And our school breaks it, there must be, right, a reason. You say you're not to come and sell chewing gum and sweetie and whatever it is outside the school within 20 feet. You decide to, there must be consequences. People have to be, our communities have to be responsible for ensuring the wellness of our children, okay? So apart from having physical activity, there's other things, right? And like we talk about daily play, children must get the ability to play daily, right? And must be, despite the activity, they must have access to developing a level of physical literacy that they can take throughout their lives and have a life that's enhanced by their understanding, the acceptance, the enjoyment they get from practicing activities that bring physical well-being.
Yes, indeed.
So talking about rain not falling.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we may have to leave that. It's
Let's
almost.
talk about as the weather gets worse,
Yeah.
because it will get a bit drier. Yeah.
And there's a lot to say on this, but we're almost out of time,
Yeah.
indeed. But just in closing, just to remind people that we need to pay attention to what is happening. Yes, it's dry outside, so your protective clothing is important. Those of us who have allergies and so,
Water collected. And water
yes,
collected.
yes, collect water in clean containers. Make sure it's safe, and all of that. Yeah, of course, as the weeks go by, we will be talking more about all of these things, and sharing the information so that we all could be in a better place. So, Doc, 2 minutes. Final words.
Look, again, I think character was a great motivator for all of us to improve the kind of life we can have. And I really want to thank all those young people who've been working so very hard. Particular thanks to our athletes and all other kids who come from wherever they come from. A lot of travel, coming to a strange place, different food, not so much different language, but culturally different. But they've been here and they displayed really great talent. And above all, what they displayed was great discipline. And we can take a pinch off their plate, right? You don't have to become professional, but you can develop skills that will enhance your lifestyle, right? This is your chance. Everybody, wherever you are, jump on the bandwagon. But let's pay a lot of our attention to our children so we don't have generations that follow us that have all these problems, right? Because the resources are scarce. Let's be able to use the natural resources, the resources that we have, that government has, to do other things. Build theaters and other things where children can, where we all can enjoy a different quality of life, right? While we engage in well-being, physical well-being. Parents, don't stop teacher from letting your children play in school, please. They're supposed to play in school. Dirty clothes will wash. Blue soap always clean white shirt. Okay.
Yes.
No, seriously. I know a guy whose mother couldn't figure out why his shirt was always so clean when he came home. Play all day in school, and then realized, when he come home, when he went in school, when he's coming home, he turned his shirt wrong side and come home looking white as chalk. When she take the shirt inside, the right side of the shirt brown. Right? But he played and he was very active, and his family is athletic. But the point is, let our children enjoy their youth and let them get accustomed and become aware of what it is to be physically healthy.
Yes, indeed.
Right? To be literate, to understand that I can use whatever skills I have. I can choose what gives me the most fun. That I can become confident and I can have confidence to become competitive, to become competent, I can have confidence to become competent and develop a skill that I can take through my life that makes me physically active all throughout. And in that way, I can prevent disease. I can prevent things like hypertension, diabetes, certainly by preventing obesity. I can also prevent cancers, all the things that obesity brings for us. And then we won't want to smoke weed and we won't want to drink alcohol, because those things make us feel unwell when we're physically well and physically active.
Yes, indeed. Okay, well, Doc, thank you so very much. Pleasure as always. We thank all our listeners or viewers for staying with us. You can join us again next Tuesday at the same time for another Doctor on Call. Until then, do have a good night and all the best.
Night, everybody.